All right, we're out here doing the video that I know a lot of you have been asking for. For those of you not up to speed, these are my two Hellcat Pros. Specifically, these are the Floyds Custom 360 TS edition Hellcat Pros. They're both ported. This one here is the commander porting that gives you the top and side ports, whereas this guy right here, this is the enforcer porting, and no top port, just side ports. I've had a lot of questions about which one of these port jobs is better. I really haven't wanted to just give an answer based on, a feel or whatever. I like to make those decisions based on data. So today I'm out here, I'm going to gather the data. I have the Mantis X here. I'm going to measure the recoil with this. And then I've got the chronograph out there. I'm going to go ahead and, see which one of these ports has more velocity drop off. And then I'm going to crunch those numbers, take a look at them, and really make a final decision as to which one of these ports is the better option. Before we really get rolling into this data collection, let's go ahead and take a moment to thank the people that support the channel. Number one is the Patreons. I know there's not a lot of you, but if you are subscribed to the Patreon, I really appreciate it. Your subscription fees go towards buying ammo and accessories and firearms, the things that we need to keep the channel going. If you aren't already a member of the Patreon, there's a link down below. Go check it out. I realize Biden's America is tough financially, so if you can't afford to do that, that's fine. At least consider taking a look at some of our channel sponsors. Now, the first one today is going to be Optics Planet. Optics Planet has code 360TS for you guys. That's going to save you some money when you buy your lights, lasers, whatever accessories it is that you want for your two-way goodies. Get them at Optics Planet. And because we are talking about the Hellcat Pros today, obviously we got to talk about the biggest sponsor of the channel, the biggest supporter, and that's going to be Apex. Now, I've said this a million times, and I have used a ton of different triggers. I've tested a ton of different triggers on a ton of different guns, but at the end of the day, when it comes to a carry gun, the only trigger that I trust is Apex, obviously. Now, Apex is also going to give you a price break if you use 360 TS. There are a lot of options out there for aftermarket triggers. Don't go with them. Just buy an Apex. You know they're safe, you know they're reliable, and you know that they are performance-based. Last but certainly not least is going to be Core Essentials. Again, 360 TS if you want to save. We are talking about concealed carry guns here. If you own a firearm, you need a good belt to use with that firearm. The only belt that I wear is the Core Essentials belts. Whether you want a dress style belt, an EDC belt, a battle belt, Core has you covered. All right, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and start gathering data so we can get this show on the road. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to run 2 mags through the commander porting. Using the Mantis, I'm going to go ahead and record the recoil data. Then I'm going to go ahead and take the barrel from my other Hellcat Pro. I'm going to swap it over to this one, and then I'm going to run 2 mags through it as well. I am running the 147 grain AAC ammo for no particular reason other than the fact that I have a bunch of it at the house. Hey guys, I just wanted to jump in here with a little bit of a correction or clarification about ammo. Now I have a ton of ammo cans over here. Not all of them are full of ammo. Some of them are full of mags and stuff. But I had 2 ammo cans side by side of AAC ammo. I meant to grab the 147 grain. I actually grabbed the 115 grain. I didn't notice it until I got home from this shooting trip. Why does that matter, you ask? Well, there's about 200 feet per second difference between the 147 grain and the 115 grain. Actually, the 147 AAC is rated at 965 feet per second, whereas the 115 grain is rated at 1165. So anyways, the point of me jumping in here is to let you know, disregard any sections where I mention 147 grain ammo. It's 115 grain. I know somebody's going to jump down in the comments section and say something about the velocity on the 147. So, correction done. All right, so I have taken the Commander porting barrel out. I put the Enforcer porting barrel in, and we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, 2 mags, and then we'll move on. Okay, so that went pretty well. I'd say my initial impression, without actually looking at the data, is that the Enforcer porting, the porting that is just on the sides and not on the top, it felt a little bit smoother. I felt like, my recovery in between shots was a little easier. I tried to keep a steady pace and cadence throughout every shot on those mags. I feel like towards the end of a mag, I started to rush myself a little bit. That probably doesn't help as far as, getting an accurate recoil reading. Another thing that I'd like to mention that I do like to factor in there is everybody's going to get different results. It's going to depend on your grip, your stance. For me personally, I know I've mentioned this in a ton of videos. I do have carpal tunnel. Right now, I'm not in a flare-up or whatever. The carpal tunnel is not bad enough to justify having surgery, but also it does make life kind of shitty sometimes. So right now, my hands are a little bit on the weak side, a little bit achy, so my grip doesn't feel as strong as it normally would. That being said, I think it went pretty well so far. Just by feel, I am leaning towards that Enforcer porting, the ports on the sides with no top port. Next, though, I'm going to set up the chronograph. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run basically the same test. 2 mags through each version through the chronograph, and we're going to see what the difference is between those two. All right, guys, I've been over here fighting with equipment. Probably the last 10 minutes trying to get the app for the Caldwell chronograph to actually sync up with the chronograph, and it doesn't want to work. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. So I'm going to go ahead and just go by what the display says. I won't be able to get an average, unfortunately, but we'll wing it. We'll get a good idea of what's going on here. So first off, Commander porting, that's the top and side ports. Let's go ahead and get it. All right, let's go ahead and switch barrels. I don't think I'm going to have to do 2 full mags on this to get an idea of what's going on. I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of notes in my iPad just so that I have this recorded, and we'll move over to the enforcer porting. All right, we're back. I had to go ahead and swap batteries on the camera, make a couple of adjustments. I have the enforcer porting set up on the Hellcat Pro now. Again, that is just side ports, no top port. Let's go ahead and shoot some rounds and see how she goes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and compare some numbers. I'm going to get out of this direct sunlight so we've got a little bit better recording space. And we'll talk about the results of both tests and get a conclusion. All right, guys, I'm glad we finally got to a point where I've got all the data collected and I can give you the most accurate answer as to which one of the Floyds Custom Shop port jobs is the best. I really appreciate everybody sticking with me and being patient for this one. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Let's start with the recoil numbers. Now, I went ahead and put 2 mags through each variation of the Floyds port. We're going to start with the Commander. I'll put these numbers on the screen here during edit. So the Commander is the top and side ports. That one, the first set of data, there is an average of 5.72 degrees of muzzle rise. The second set of data is 5.64 degrees of muzzle rise as an average. Then when we swapped over to the enforcer porting, a lot of people would think because they are just side ports and there's no top port, that it's not going to mitigate recoil. But what we've got here for the first set of data is an average of 3.9 degrees of muzzle rise. The second set is 2.5 degrees of muzzle rise. So there's a lot of reasons why there can be variation there. It can be anything from a little tighter or a little looser grip. There's a lot of reasons, but clearly between the 2 sets of data for each port type, the enforcer porting wins. Now, there's a lot of companies out there that are doing port jobs, not just on the Hellcat Pro, but on other guns. And you see this a lot where they just put a big gaping port in the top of the slide and barrel. And yes, that is going to mitigate a ton of recoil. It's also going to dump a ton of gases out the top, and you're going to lose a lot of velocity. The question people always ask is, why would you just have side ports? That's not doing anything. But the fact of the matter is, the side ports, the enforcer porting on the Hellcat Pro, they come up high enough on the barrel that it's almost a spread between 9 and 3 up into the like 10 and 2 position on the barrel. This can be seen in the data. you're reducing the muzzle rise, but you're also reducing that rearward kick, that felt recoil. I can actually feel quite a bit less recoil with the Enforcer than I do the Commander. But you know what? We're talking about a carry gun, and really the velocity is something that matters more than anything. So let's take a look at those numbers, if I can find them. Okay, let's start out with the Commander again. So there was some variation. I ran several mags off camera because I wanted to make sure that I had these numbers correct. And what I came up with, the Commander porting, which is the top and sides, it was jumping around between 930 feet per second and 960 feet per second. The Enforcer porting, on the other hand, which is just the side ports, the Enforcer porting was running 950 to 980 feet per second. So as far as I can tell, the Enforcer porting is the better of the two. Again, that's 950 to 980 feet per second on the 147 grain AAC ammo for the Enforcer, whereas the Commander was running 930 to 960. Both of these perform really well as far as recoil mitigation. Obviously, the Enforcer is getting better numbers for the recoil, but it's also getting better numbers for velocity. Now, as a carry gun, obviously the velocity is the part that means the most. You don't want to slow your bullet down so much that it can't get the job done. But also at the same time, you still want a gun that you can fire quickly and stay on target better, which you can do when you mitigate more recoil. So at the end of the day, if I had to choose one of these two styles of porting, I would choose the Enforcer. Again, that Enforcer porting, that is the porting that is just on the sides of the slide and barrel, no top port. I think that it's more efficient. You're losing less gas, you're losing less velocity, you're getting better recoil mitigation. Another thing is that with both of these, when you look at the Commander porting, it's great. I love it, don't get me wrong. But some people don't like the fact that your sight has to be relocated because of the port. With the Enforcer porting, your sight doesn't have to get relocated. It stays where it's at. Basically, all the cut work is done on the sides of the slide. It's relatively quick and easy. Everything stays the same other than the sides of the slide. Personally, I think it looks a little classy myself. I really like it. So there we are. That's it. I apologize for this video taking as many months as it has, but again, I've told you guys a million times, I don't want to give people my opinion based on feel. I prefer to go by data, and the data has spoken. Floyds Custom Shop Enforcer porting is the superior port job for the Hellcat Pro. While you're over there at Floyd's, make sure you take a look at those mag wells, those mag extensions. You know what? I'm glad to finally finish this series up. But again, this is not the last you'll be seeing of my Hellcat Pros. We'll be back with some more Hellcat Pro stuff probably in the next couple of weeks. I've got a couple things coming in the mail for them. But yeah, it's been great. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you back here real soon.